Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back to Historic Tea with the Twins. This week I'm super excited about.
This is Kelly.
Oh, I'm Kelly.
Sorry.
Sorry, I just got excited. I'm very excited because we're talking about Cleopatra today. Not so much about her about the messy stuff. It's gonna be good. I think it's gonna be good. Any housekeeping before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. Daylight savings time is just kicking my butt. Anyway. Okay, so Cleopatra, the one that we all know and love, the famous Cleopatra, is actually Cleopatra the 7th. Her title, they're all named the same thing. So then you have Ptolemy, and then there's a name after it. So her name is Cleopatra the 7th Philopator, which I'm definitely saying that wrong, but it means father-loving goddess, which is what her name means or whatever. Not the Cleopatra part, but I think the other part. I'm definitely saying that wrong. I have no idea. Anyway, okay, so she was not technically Egyptian. She grew up in Egypt, but she had no Egyptian blood because she was Macedonian. So basically, it's kind of hard to explain, and I don't want to get too into it because it's a lot, but basically, Alexander the Great took over Egypt when he was Macedonia when he's doing his thing that he did, conquering the world thing. He took over Egypt and he put the first Ptolemy on the throne for Egypt, and they kind of took over. So she is one of the Ptolemies. She's part of the Ptolemaic line, and this was during the Hellenistic period, which is what it's called after Alexander's death until her death in. So from about
1930 or
1933.
When she died in 1933, what is it?
So his Alexander's death, which is the beginning of the Hellenistic era, is 323 BCE, and then her death is 30 BCE. So she was Macedonian. She was not, which is basically Greek. It's the northern part of Greece. She was not Egyptian at all, but she was the first queen or Egyptian leader, first Ptolemaic leader to learn Greek, or not Greek, excuse me. She learned Egyptian. So she was the first to learn the language. And she also spoke 9 different languages. She was very smart. She could do math. She had education.
She could read.
Probably. She could do astronomy and astrology. She had education and all kinds of stuff. She was very smart.
Nice.
She was born.
The only thing anyone remembers of her is her being a slut.
Her beauty. But actually, her depictions of her aren't that forgiving, but everyone says that she was this knockout beauty. Anywho. So she dressed in the Egyptian style, and she looked like an Egyptian based on hair and makeup and stuff, but she was not Egyptian by blood. She was born in 70 BCE or 69 BCE. They're not quite sure when she was born. She was born in Alexandria, Egypt, which is the capital of Egypt, and part of the Ptolemaic dynasty. I already kind of got into that. Okay, she became queen after Ptolemy, her dad Ptolemy the 10, 11, 12th. He died in 51 BCE, and she was named, she took over being the queen with her brother, Ptolemy, the 13. So she ruled with him between 51 BCE and 47 BCE, and they probably got married. That was a thing in Egypt, because the old Egyptians in the old dynasty before the Hellenistic period, they married their siblings to gain, to get better power or something. I don't know.
But also,
keep it in the
let's
family.
Be real. So did, these are Greeks, not Romans. Never mind.
Yeah. So they married full siblings. The ancient Greeks or ancient Egyptians would marry full siblings to strengthen their bond. So then when the Ptolemies took over, they also married their siblings just to kind of be we are the rightful leaders of Egypt.
Especially given the religion in Egypt is all about the god.
It's Isis and I don't know.
The other one where it's
their sibling, the gods were siblings.
Yeah, well, and then also in Egyptian religion,
because I think Hera and Zeus were siblings, married. Well, yeah, but I think they were. I don't know.
But they want them to, when they come in and conquer, they're Egypt, they want the people to like them.
Mhm.
So then they change certain things about them so that they can be like, see, the gods do love us. Like, we are a part of it.
Yeah.
Like, we are meant to be king because look at us. We're doing the same thing that Egyptians do.
They kind of like try to tie it back to the old Egyptians just so that they can be like, see, we're just a continuing line, even though they're conquerors. Okay, so she marries her brother, and then she also ruled with her other brother Ptolemy, the 14th, from 47 when her first brother died to 44. And then she also ruled, because in this time period, queens, you couldn't rule as a woman by yourself. You had to have like a male counterpart.
Yeah.
Even though she was like 18 at the time, and even though she was basically running the country on her own, she had to have a male figurehead. So she also ran with her, she ran the kingdom with her son, Ptolemy the 15th.
So
Caesar.
she had kids other than...
No. So she married her brothers, but she only had kids with
Julius
Caesar and Antony.
So who was that? That one is Caesar's kid.
Yeah.
When did she meet Caesar?
I'm getting there. So, she had less power because queens weren't really in the rule at that time. But she was 8 years older than her brother. So her first brother was 10 or 11, and she was 18 when they got married and started ruling the country together. Macedon, married siblings, blah, blah, blah. So basically in 48 CE, she, like just a few years into the rule, her brother was like mad at her and like exiled her. And
The 14th. The second brother?
The first brother. The 13th, I think. There's a lot of Ptolemies. They're really hard to tell who's who. Anyway, the first brother, Ptolemy, he exiles her. I don't know where he exiles her to, but he exiles her to somewhere. And Egypt gets like caught up in the war. The Greeks are like waging war.
What does Myrtle have?
Actually,
okay.
They're like raging war or whatever. So Caesar is fighting Pompey the Great. It's interesting, but I don't care about any of this. So the Greeks are fighting, and Cleopatra wants Caesar's help to fight her brother.
But also, Caesar's not Greek. Caesar's Roman.
You're right. I was wrong. These are the Romans now. We're not talking about Alexander. Okay. So the Romans, Caesar and Pompey are fighting, and she wants him to help her kick her brother off the throne so she can get the throne, and he needs her money. Caesar needs her money to fight Pompey so that he can become the dictator in Greece.
Sure.
Rome.
So
Rome.
he can become the emperor.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. So they start fighting. Pompey is killed. And then in order to get on Caesar's good side, legend has it that she disguised herself to meet him. There was a servant, and she rolled herself up in a carpet.
As one does.
So Cleopatra has a servant roll her up in a carpet, and then bring her to Caesar's tent, and then she like pops out of this carpet and seduces him with her feminine wiles. So they start hooking up. They fall in love or whatever. And then her first brother, Ptolemy the 13th, is killed. I don't know. I don't care about how he died, but he died. And then she was ruling with her second brother, Ptolemy the 14th.
She was ruling?
Yes,
Oh,
ruling with
ruined.
him. No, ruling. And then I'm pretty sure she married the second brother as well. But he was also a kid, so he kind of just like was off on the side in the nursery, and she was like ruling with Caesar. So then they fall in love, and the second brother dies at some point, but I don't really know when. Like I said, we're more focused on Cleopatra and her. We don't care about the plan. Anyway. So they're all in love. They're falling in love. They love each other. She goes back to Rome with him, and they live there for a few years until he dies.
And how many kids do they have?
So they had Caesar, or they call him Little Caesar. So I don't know when she gave birth, but they had a son. His name was it was Ptolemy something Caesar, and they called him Caesarion, which is Little Caesar. Pizza. So they call him Little Caesar, and it was Caesar never acknowledged that he was the dad, but like he was the dad.
Also,
But Caesar was married, I think, at this time, and he was like 50 something, and she was 21. He was like 52.
did they only have one kid?
Yeah. So they weren't together for very long. So they met in 48, and he was dead by 44. So they weren't together for very long.
Only 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. So
and remember, we're counting backwards.
Yeah. So it goes
this is BC.
Yeah. So they love each other, and then he dies. He dies on the Ides of March. How crazy that we're doing this, because the Ides of March is March 15th, and today's the 12th.
Today's the 11th.
Today's the 11th.
Also, happy birthday, Myrtle.
It's Myrtle's birthday. Anyway,
she's 2.
So she, like, they're in love or whatever.
And obviously he's killed at the Senate by Brutus.
He was like, he was stabbed by a bunch of the Senate.
I know, but like the whole et tu, Brutus.
Yeah. So he's murdered, and because he wants to be dictator or something. So Greece, I don't know why I keep saying Greece. Rome was a republic. So they had a Senate, and there wasn't one ruler. It was, a republic. And then Caesar came along, and he's like, actually, I want to be the dictator. So he does that, and then they stab him in the back. And
Is this after the triumvirate?
So Caesar dies.
Oh, no.
They create the triumvirate with Mark Antony, someone else, and Octavian, who was Caesar's adopted son. He becomes Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, after they become an empire. So that's all kind of happening at this time. He dies. She basically sneaks Caesarion out of Rome, because they don't want him to be murdered, because like Octavian, Augustus wants to be the heir. He was adopted by Caesar, and he's the presumed heir.
And so that's pretty common in
Rome.
In Rome, but also in general, because then you have like the little men or little boys in the palace. They're murdered,
like the princes in the tower.
Princes in the tower, yeah, they're murdered because they don't want, because whoever's going to be king doesn't want them to be taken. So it's very common for like,
because Caesarion should have been, if he was acknowledged as Caesar's son
and legitimate,
and he if he was legitimate, but Caesar was married at the time. I don't know who his wife was. I didn't look that up, but he was married, so he couldn't technically be with Cleopatra. I mean, like legally or whatever, but they lived together, and she went to Rome even though he was married. Anyway, so he was technically illegitimate because he wasn't married to his wife, but he still had a claim to the throne.
Yeah, which means he could start war, and if he won, he would be the emperor.
Yeah, but
so it's very common for things like that to happen, for people to be murdered.
Caesar wanted Octavian, who was his adopted son, to be his heir.
Also, that's very common for them to adopt people that aren't related to them, or even maybe I feel like Augustus was like his nephew or something, or Octavian at this time, or
I don't know,
something. If you want to be watch a super interesting show that covers some of this,
HBO's Rome. So good. It's got Kevin McLeod and what's his name? Kevin Hunt from Grey's Anatomy. It's got him in it. Old school. It's got Tobias Menzies in it. It's got the guy who played
he played one of the
Mark Antony. I can't think of who that guy is, but it has that guy in it. It's very good.
It's very good.
It's
a lot of
got
regular British.
It's got
actors.
the mom from Penelope's mom from Bridgerton is
Octavian
Caesar's wife. I haven't seen that in years. I think she was Octavian's, or not.
She's Octavian's mom, but I don't think they were actually married.
I thought she was Caesar's mom or Caesar's wife. Anyway,
regardless, it's an excellent show.
Her name is Polly in real life. It's a very good show. I should watch that because I haven't seen that in ages. Okay, so anyway, Cleo is 21, Caesar's 52, so a huge age gap. She snuck in with the tent, and then
she just snuck out Caesarion.
Yeah, so she moved to Rome, or she left Rome to go back to Egypt because she didn't want Caesar's son to be killed.
But then she's also now a threat to Rome.
Yeah, so her second brother is mysteriously killed. So now she is basically a ruler with her infant son.
Mm-hmm.
So she gets to rule by herself now. Okay. So Caesar couldn't claim the boy because he was already married or whatever. Octavian was named heir. Caesar was assassinated. Octavian takes Rome with Mark Antony and the other guy in the triumvirate. I don't remember what his name was. He's not important.
Probably Ptolemy or something like that.
I think it was like Marcus. I don't know. It was something. They were like the triumvirate, which they each had a third of the empire, and it worked for a little while, and then there was like fighting, and they wanted, like, everybody wanted a bigger piece of the empire. So then they're fighting, and
but technically it's not an empire yet.
It's not an empire yet until after Augustus is the first empire or emperor. I always get those two. I can't speak words. So after Caesar's death, Cleopatra and her son ruled together for a few years, and then Mark Antony arrives on the scene, and he sends for Cleopatra to come visit him in Turkey or wherever he is. I don't know. So he comes, and she's like, I'm going to make a spectacle of this. I'm going to be head bitch in charge. Like, I am the one. So if you've seen the movie Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor, they have like this huge scene where she's like riding up on like a golden elephant. Everything's gold. So she makes this huge spectacle, and Mark Antony is, damn, that girl grew up, because she knew him. This is like years later. So he knew her when she was younger, when she first met Caesar, and then now she's like a grown up.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know when Caesar or Mark Antony was born. I don't think he was quite as old as Caesar. I think it said 88 maybe, and she was born in 70 or 69. So he wasn't as, so he's not as much older than her as Caesar was, but
it's like 20 years instead of 50.
Right. Yeah.
Or 30 or whatever.
So he sends for her, and he basically wants to use Cleopatra's wealth, because Egypt is a very wealthy country.
They have a lot of like resources.
Yeah. Well, it's a desert. Anywho,
Yeah, but how
whatever.
do they get so wealthy if they don't have resources?
I don't know. Anyway, so Egypt is really wealthy, and Antony wants Egypt on his side so that he can win against the triumvirate, the other men in the triumvirate. One of them, I don't know who the unimportant one is, but he like dies or something, and then it's just between Mark Antony and Octavius.
Also, this poor girl is ruling this country like a badass, and she keeps getting used by these men because she's wealthy.
Yeah. So she makes this grand entrance. Antony is dazzled. He's like, that girl's the shit. I want her forever and always. So they fall in love, and their affair was mutually beneficial because she got protection and connection to Rome, which is like the hot spot at the time. Everyone wants to be Rome. And he got money for his campaigns or whatever. So at the time, this is kind of where it gets messy. I mean, it's already kind of messy because everyone's married, but because, she was technically married when she met Caesar.
Yeah.
And they fell in love, and he was married. So Mark Antony is married to Flavia. I think it's Flavia.
I think it's Flavia.
He's married to Flavia in Rome. Flavia dies at some point. In order to foster in order to mesh the two triumvirates or whatever, Augustus, so Octavian, offers up his sister Octavia. They're all the same name. It's just female and male version. So Octavia is set to marry Mark Antony. So they get married while Cleopatra is pregnant with their twins.
Yep, makes sense.
So, and I think the twins are Alexander Helios, and that's the first one, and then the second one is Cleopatra Selene.
Mm-hmm. So
it's boy-girl twin. But she's pregnant with the twins, and he goes off to Rome. She's left in Egypt. He goes off to Rome to marry Octavia. So he marries Octavia, and then him and Octavian are still fighting. They're fighting the war. It's all the things. And then eventually he goes back to Cleopatra, and they hang out together. They're together, I want to say 10 years or something.
Yeah,
they're
he's
together
in Egypt.
They're together for a while. And he lives in Egypt. He wears the black eyeliner. I don't know, but he does in the show. And eventually there's a war. Cleopatra fakes her death at some point when Antony's like off
on campaign.
Yeah, off fighting or whatever. So Cleopatra fakes her death. Antony is like, oh my god, my one true love is dead. So he falls on his sword. And then he makes
Shakespearean shit.
Well, yeah, Shakespeare wrote a book about it.
I know, but we need to stop doing this.
Shakespeare wrote a play about it. So then he like kills himself, and then he has himself carried. He's like, carry me to my love. So then he gets carried to her, and then he's dead, and as Octavian is closing in on Egypt, trying to get, because I think eventually Egypt becomes part of the Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happens after this, but
yes,
she is like locked up in a room.
Dramatic as hell.
Yeah, she's locked up in a room. I don't know where her kids are at this point, but she like
with the asp
puts a snake on her arm or something and poisons herself, which is a hell of a way to go.
Hell of a way to go, but not the most user friendly.
Yeah.
Or
this is allegedly. This is what they say happened to her. They say that she was killed by an asp. But honestly, what a slow way to die.
Yeah, and also, like,
you have to wait for the poison to get, like, just
for real.
I mean, it's not like she can take sleeping pills or something, but have a servant smother you.
Have a servant kill you.
Yeah, like, have a servant stab you. I don't know. It seems like an odd choice, but she was, like, dramatic, and I guess there was something about the asps and a goddess or Isis or someone. I don't know.
Symbolic.
Yeah, it was symbolic. So they both died in 30 BCE. And then, so they must have known each other from, like, 44 is when Caesar died. And then a few years later is when they met. So, I mean, like, they met, because they met when Caesar was around. But, so they were together for, like, 10 or 11 years. So she uses the asp to commit suicide. They both die. Poor Caesarion, I don't know how old he is at this time, but probably, like,
he's
14.
Probably, like, yeah, 12.
Well, Caesar died in 44. So Caesarion was born between 48 and 44. So he would have been like 14 or 15.
Oh, 14.
I'm not good at math, but because they died in 30. So he was killed because Octavian didn't want him to be able to take the throne. Yeah. He was murdered. And then, this is the craziest thing at all to me. So he died so he couldn't claim the throne. The other children, so Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene,
are adopted by Augustus, right?
Went to go live with Octavia.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Went to go live with his wife.
So she adopted his, like...
And I don't think she had any kids.
I don't remember, but Antony's legal wife, Octavia, adopted and raised the children that he had with his paramour, like his love affair. This great love affair that he had for his marriage of convenience wife raised his children, which I think is absolutely hilarious. But yeah,
it's sad for Octavia.
I know, right? So they live happily ever after or whatever. And then Antony and Cleopatra were buried together as per their wishes. And then I don't know where Caesarion was. But yeah, so they're like buried together in a tomb or something. I don't know if they were buried in like Roman traditions or Egyptian traditions, but she was the last queen of the Hellenistic era, the last of the Ptolemaic dynasty. But yeah, so it's kind of a messy love affair.
So much things.
I probably should have looked more into like what she did, why she's remembered. I mean, she's remembered because of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But she seemed like she did quite a bit on her own.
I mean, she had a thriving...
Even if she had to rule with her brothers. But yeah, it was kind of a messy... Everyone was married and having affairs. Everyone was married to their siblings. She had a sister called Arsinoe. But I don't know what happened to the sister.
There's also a lot of Arsinoes.
Yes, Arsinoes are interesting. So this is going to be confusing, but it's interesting. So there's some Arsinoes in the earlier part of the Hellenistic period. And
with Philip, right?
I think later than that, but during, I don't remember. But Arsinoe II was married to Lysimachus, which I'm probably saying that wrong.
No, I think that's right.
And then I don't know if they were still married or if they got, like, if he died or whatever. Then, okay, so Lysimachus had a daughter that was not Arsinoe's. This is so confusing, but it's so interesting. And I think her name was Arsinoe too, but we're not going to say that. So Arsinoe was the Lysimachus's daughter's stepmother, and then Arsinoe married her brother Ptolemy.
Arsinoe
II married her brother Ptolemy, who was also married to Lysimachus's daughter. So Arsinoe II was the
stepmother,
sister wife, stepmother, and sister-in-law of the other Arsinoe. I think they were both called Arsinoe, but
of course they were.
So it was like this huge love triangle because they could be married to multiple people at this time, I think. Because I think that Ptolemy had like 2 or 3 wives. But yeah, so she was married to Lysimachus, and so it was Arsinoe. She was the mother or the daughter. No, the stepmother, the sister-in-law, and the sister wife of the other Arsinoe. And it is wild, and I think it's so fun.
Okay, what I want to mention in this is Mark Antony, one of the most famous characters in history because of Shakespeare, because of all this nonsense. Let's rewind. So, everything that we know about Antony is, or was, propaganda by Octavian. So, there's nothing we know about him written in the time frame of, of his life. We don't have any documents from him, or from his time before, he gets defeated by Octavian. So everything that we have from him is written later in the dynasty of Octavian, or Augustus as he becomes. Which I think is so fascinating, because it's like, everyone who's writing under Octavian or Augustus is going to be writing in a way that's not going to get them in trouble with the emperor. So it's going to be automatically biased.
Which they always say that the victor writes history, and
in this case, he
Augustus
literally
was the victor.
And so he literally wrote all the history about Mark Antony. Because everything that survives is from the lens of people writing in Augustan Rome, which I think is fascinating. I think about that all the time.
That's your Roman Empire.
That is my Roman Empire. I think about it all the time. Because I'm like, God, we could just make someone up. If we all believed and wrote down and believed that Harry Potter was real, Harry Potter could be real in the future.
Right.
They'd be like, yeah, this guy, and he had this little kid, and like...
There is no future. I'm just kidding.
That's
a dark.
Anywho.
I thought this was timely. I was thinking about it when I was, like, doing the research. I was like, oh, like, just refreshing myself. I was like, Ides of March, how funny. Because that's when Caesar died, but... yeah, so that is Cleopatra, a kind of a shortened, chaotic,
just the little fun bits.
Just the interesting stuff. Just
also,
the tea. Just the gossip.
Right. I love the story of her just rolling up
a carpet.
I mean, what a Trojan horse.
I think that was real. Like, that's what it's, I mean,
that's...
They had to disguise her, because she couldn't just waltz right in.
Yeah.
Because he was a heavily guarded.
I just think it's interesting that it's like, oh yeah, hey, I got this carpet.
Well, I mean, I think their tents were, like, carpeted and, like, well furnished. They probably had curtains and shit. I don't know. But I think it's hilarious.
It makes me laugh.
I think it's very messy of Mark to be married, marrying an enemy's sister while your wife is, or while your lover is pregnant with twins.
I think it's amazing and wonderful of Octavia to take in those children.
Yeah, like, how sweet of her to be like, yeah, I guess, but those are my husband's offspring.
Like, she would be considered, like, a huge bitch and non-matriarchal if she didn't.
Well, and I also think that Octavian Augustus wanted to keep them close.
Mm-hmm. Keep your enemies closer.
Yeah, like, he wanted to keep them close, because, well, even... Like, Mark Antony is the one who publicly declared that Caesarion was his kid, because he thought that he was Caesar's kid, because he thought that would give him the upper hand in the whole thing.
What got Caesarion killed.
Yeah. I mean, people knew that it was his kid, but Caesar never claimed him.
Yes, there's also rumors that he got away, that Caesarion didn't actually get murdered, which is how it ends in HBO's Rome, is Tiberius takes Caesar at the end, I think. And or Caesarion, and like hides him away.
I haven't seen that show in like...
Anyway, you should go watch it. It's fantastic.
Forever years, but... Kevin McKidd is his name.
Kevin McKidd, yes.
Kevin McKidd. But yeah, that's all I had for today. I thought this would be longer, but I think I just talk fast, so sorry about that. I get excited.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
I always really liked female history, like the women and stuff. And I did a paper on queenship, the evolution of queenship in the Hellenistic era in grad school. So this was pretty fun to look back on. But
yeah, plus you already had a lot of that research.
I mean, I knew a lot of it. I just had to remember. I just had to refresh it.
All right. Well,
so
that's
all
it.
right. That's all we
We'll see
have
you
for
next week.
today. Have a great day.
Like, comment, subscribe, or whatever. I don't know.
Do all the things. Send it to your friends.